Is the Harley-Davidson Sport Glide a good bike to do long distance riding on? Catch you inside.
RevelatorAlf.
Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. Hope you're enjoying the channel and the series of videos. Please like, share, subscribe, leave loads of comments below and check out the website RevelatorAlf.com. So in this video I'm talking about the Harley-Davidson Sport Glide. As you know, I have one of those. Or you could really extend this out to the Softail range as well, because they're all built around the same chassis and the same engine, whether 107 or 114 cubic inch. Right, so is it a good bike to do long distance riding, or in my case, endurance riding? Now, the question has been asked multiple times, is it a good tourer? Is it comfortable on good long rides, all that kind of thing. Now, I rode my Sport Glide on the recent endurance ride around Great Britain, over 1,800 miles in just under 36 hours. And I would say that the bike performed fantastically well. I was actually a little surprised at how well it did perform. I thought I might encounter some issues. I thought I might encounter some clutch issues, maybe some oil burn, that kind of thing. Maybe some tyre performance issues, especially in some of the wet weather that I was riding, some of the slippery conditions that I was riding. I thought that it might struggle with the higher altitudes at times, and also with the driving rain and the high winds, for example, in terms of stability, whether it would be able to maintain itself. But actually, it was fine all the way around. So in terms of mechanically, never missed a beat. Absolutely fantastic. Electrically, always on point. Engine, as I say, just purred all the way around. Although I will say this, when I had to ride through the cities with lots of stop-starts because of lots of series of traffic lights or anything like that, certainly when I rode through London the early hours of the morning, I noticed that when I got to one of the stops, the RPM was hunting a little bit. It was fluctuations, what I mean. It started to rev up a little bit and rev down, rev up, rev down. So its idle wasn't really fixed as it was. And this has been reported quite a few times. So if you've got this issue, Harley say it's actually quite a normal issue. And I think this is more of a sensor issue along with the ECM. They're looking at all the different sensors, how that's relaying that information with probably it's going to be something like engine temperature or something like that, and then how that feeds back into the ECM, and then how all that the timing and also the fuel is all adjusted, you know, at idle. That's where it's fluctuating. But apart from that, it was absolutely fine. You know, revved, no problems at all. The other issue that I had, well, it wasn't an issue, I noticed a difference in the sound that it made when I went on higher altitude. And this is to be expected because you're changing the ambient conditions, you're changing air pressure, temperature, that kind of thing, in a relatively short space of time. So I went from sea level up to, I'm not sure a height, certainly over 1,000 feet, a couple of thousand feet no, not a couple of thousand feet, it was less than that, but it was quite high up. But I could certainly notice the difference from sea level riding to high altitude riding, but it performed still absolutely well. The power was still there, no issues at all. Now obviously the higher you go, the more power limited it will be. It stands to reason. So, you know, that's just something to bear in mind. On a stock bike, I'm on a stock Harley as well, by the way. So in terms of electrical, I'll say engine, absolutely fine. Fuel consumption, yeah, fuel consumption was noticeably more on this ride. And the reason is because for the longest time, actually, I was scratching my head. Why am I using so much fuel? Why am I using so much fuel? The sheer fact is that I was pushing the bike more. I wasn't excessively speeding or anything like that. I wasn't doing, you know, 120 miles an hour or 110 miles an hour because it's still limited bike or anything like that. No, it's just that I was trying to get up to speed quicker. I was trying to maintain speed a lot more. And that's the thing about endurance riding, it's your average speed that you need to try and maintain. I was overtaking cars a lot more, so I wasn't in cruise mode, I was actually in power mode, and that's why the fuel consumption was more. That's why I had to have more stops. That's actually why I was taking more fuel in the first place as spare fuel, so I could just counteract that kind of thing as well. But it was definitely noticeable that the fuel consumption just went up quite a bit more. Right, so what about carrying equipment? Yeah, I mean, the panniers were full of stuff, and they worked well. You know, you've got to be, say, I've got a video coming out about the panniers. You've got to be a little bit careful with them. Don't manhandle them too much. But they're absolutely fine. As long as you close them slowly and make sure nothing's caught, then you're not over pressurizing the bag so it will pop out. Absolutely fine. What I kept all the stuff in the panniers that I wouldn't need readily, only if I made a long stop and I could just go into the bags. I actually ran with a tank bag. Had all my not day to day, but hour to hour or minute by minute stuff right there, all my electrical phones, sat nav, you know, all that kind of stuff. Spare batteries, anything like that for my cameras, anything like that was all in the tank bag, easily at hand for me, and that worked well. The bike, it's to say, was completely standard. There was no modifications to it apart from I did put bar mitts on it to block out the wind from my hands. I decided to not go with heated grips or with heated gloves of any form. The reason is I didn't want to have an excessive drain on the battery because I was also running phones, cameras and sat nav already, and I also didn't want to have battery operated gloves, for example, heated gloves, because they just wouldn't last long enough. So I kind of went back to old school, just heavyweight winter gloves and the bar mitts, and it worked absolutely fine. Right, so the next thing was tire performance. Were they going to be good enough on this ride in all the kind of weather conditions? Now, in some cases, I was actually down to 0 degrees, freezing temperatures, a lot of frost, there's fog, lots of wet roads, lots of slippery roads, drizzle, driving rain, high winds, lots of different types of roads, whether it's city streets, motorways, A roads, B roads, mountain roads, that kind of thing. The whole range of roads you can imagine, I'd actually ridden on it. And they performed absolutely well, you know, and I was actually banking it into the bends, and you know, my heel was scraping a lot of the time. It was right on the limit a lot of the time when it was sensible enough for me to do it, when it was dry enough. But in general terms, you do tend to ride, or you need to ride more conservatively. You need to keep that bike more upright when you're riding. So a lot more counter steering that I was using, but as I say, the tyres worked fine. They didn't miss a beat either. Lots of people would wonder, you know, is the Sport Glide or the Softail a suitable bike for any sort of long distance riding, or certainly endurance riding, when you need to push it a little bit or need to have a higher performance demand, let's say, from a bike at a consistent level? I wasn't sure whether it would actually be suitable. I thought I might encounter some issues. I thought there might be some power drain, as I say, some clutch issues, anything like that. But I say it was absolutely fine. I was surprised. It was comforting actually on the ride to know that I got a rock steady bike beneath me and there was going to be no issues. Yes, it's a relatively new bike. Yes, you know, I hadn't had any issues that I should be aware of, but obviously that's something that still plays on your mind. As I say, you know, so if this is testament to the bike or to the Softail series or to the actual Sport Glide in particular, then this test, this endurance ride, really put it through its paces, and as I say, it just came out on top. There's nothing else I can say that can be negative about it. It was just a great ride. Now, because I've still got the bike in a stock configuration, because I want to test it in its stock configuration in lots of different ways, actually ergonomically, how I fit the bike, how my reach to the handlebars is perfect. I still had the standard seat, no issues there, and I say I rode over 1,800 miles. Yes, it was painful at times. Yes, You know, it was sore, and I'm still sore for a few days later. But in terms of the seat, it was no better, no worse, really. Yes, I probably could have gone for another seat, but it's absolutely fine. There are a few tips which you can help to overcome saddle soreness. You can try, if you're wearing multiple trouser layers, you can actually try and stick a towel in between your outer layer and your inner layer, on your bum and your ass, basically. That will pad out a little bit. You can put paper towels around there as well. That can, when your bum or your butt is up against the rear of the seat, it adds a little bit of a cushion there, so that helps as well. Some people will say that if you add another layer underneath your, on top of your seat, let's say like a cowhide. Some people say in America it's very popular. But actually over here, and I'm sure this is over in other parts of the world, there was this bead mat that you used to be able to buy. And a lot of car drivers used to have it. They used to drape it over the car seat and everything. And that would really help. And actually a lot of people use that as well. That's really good for long distance riding as well. The reasoning behind that is because you've got another layer, and the movement of that layer can actually interact with the seat as opposed to your body interacting with the seat. So you've got another layer that sort of moves beneath you. So, you know, minute details. So it does help. It adds a little bit of cushioning as well. But in terms of the seat itself, absolutely fine. So the cruise control worked absolutely great on my bike. The only problem is with cruise control, and certainly here in the UK, is that you're constantly having to engage it, disengage it, or change it at times when you're in, you know, higher traffic density on motorways, because, you know, cars slow down, speed up, slow down. It's just, you know, sometimes it's a fool's errand. Also, sometimes it's actually easier to maintain an RPM or a speed just manually, especially if you're, you know, a little bit tired or whatever. Just having that something else to concentrate on, to focus on, gives you that extra alertness, or that requirement to be extra alert. But it was really good. Overall, the bike performed brilliantly. As I say, if you're ever considering getting a sport glider or a Harley Davidson, certainly definitely look at the Softails. If you're going to be doing any kind of mileage, look at something like a Sport Glide and see whether it's right for you. You know, you may want to go for a tour instead, you know, something like a, I don't know, street glide or something like that, whatever, or an electric glide, but road glide, whatever. But, you know, these Sport Glides, these Softails are really great bikes. What I really like about this bike is that, as I say, great power to weight ratio, but the chassis allows it to be actually ridden properly into bends. That's where you'll notice it most. You can put it into a bend and it will stick it. And with, you know, all types of weather conditions now, as I just rode, it actually found, especially when you're really tired and, you know, you're on a drizzly, rainy night, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning and you've got to go down these country roads, you want to know that a bike beneath you is there and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's doing it very well. You know, so that's the kind of thing. And the great thing about the Harley Sport Glide in my case is that because I fit on it so well and the riding position is so great, even if I wanted to change the handlebars now, I wouldn't go any much higher than actually is probably maybe about an inch, maybe 2 inches, absolute maximum height wise. Different style, yeah, different look, absolutely, but nothing greater, because it actually, my riding side for my shoulders and my back works perfectly at that riding position. So that's something you need to factor in with your bike. You know, if you're going to do any long distance riding, is the setup of the bike suitable for a long distance ride and for how you'll be able to cope with it as well? That's really important. But all I can say is that the Sport Glide, the Softail, Harley Softail, the Sport Glide was absolutely fantastic on a long distance ride, on an endurance ride. And I suppose it always comes down to personal choice, doesn't it? And it comes down to what you want out of a bike. Yeah, I'm sure you could load it up with lots of different stuff, different seats. You can carry a pillion as well. And you will go quite comfortably, no doubt. But say for an endurance ride, which I did, you know, lean and mean to a certain degree, but it just did it brilliantly. And you know, I was thankful that I was riding it actually. On the other bikes that I've ridden for endurance rides, I'm not going to say this because I'm a Harley rider and I love my Sport Glide, and most of this channel now is about the Harley. Because actually, if I needed to be negative about it, I would. But actually, I can't be negative about it at all because it's just brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant. It was the perfect bike for this ride. That's all I can say. So if you're ever wondering, is a Harley Davidson Sport Glide or a Softail, especially a Sport Glide, is it suitable for a long distance ride? Absolutely a resounding yes. Is it suitable for any kind of endurance ride or road based endurance ride? I would say absolutely yes. City riding, back roads riding, highway, motorway riding, low altitude, high altitude up to a certain point, absolutely fine. All weathers, takes on all comers, no problem at all. And I will say this about the Sport Glide, whilst it may not be imposing on the road in terms of physical dimensions, let's say like some big adventure bikes, it was enough that I was able to bully my way, for want of a better word, through traffic, past traffic, and you know, cars were just moving out of the way. And so a big thumbs up to lots of car drivers out there who always get, you know, a rough ride from a lot of us bikers, don't they? But actually on this ride, and I've noticed it quite a lot recently, they're moving out of the way as you want to come through. I give them a thumbs up as you go, absolutely fine. So the physical presence of the bike and the way you're riding it makes it, you know, a great ride and a great bike for this kind of riding. Anyway, well, I hope you found that useful. Please like, share, subscribe, leave loads of comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've ridden your bike long distance and what you thought about it and what things that you did to your bike to make the journey a lot better. All right, catch you on the next video, whenever that is. As I say, check out the website, RevelatorAlf.com, and well, all that's left to say is that the heroic Harley is still being very heroic, and I couldn't have made a better choice. Ta-da!